Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Music. I'm Benjamin, and today we are going to be going over The Time Is Now, which is the electronic demo track that I did using Orb Composer 1.5. As you can see on the screen, it's probably one of the longer tracks that I've done, going on for about 2 minutes. It could have been longer for sure. I could have made it longer and done some more things with it, but it was just a demo to demonstrate how I went about making electronic music with Orb Composer's new system. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that this track was created in Orb Composer and mixed and mastered by me all in under an hour. So it was put together quite fast. That's the inspiration behind this track actually came from the rush that I needed to get it out. Because Richard had told me, the CEO of our company, Richard, he says, hey, we need an electronic demo track, and we are going to be releasing the newsletter in about 4 hours. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go think on it for a little while because I got nothing right now. Like, I was staring at my screen here, and I'm just like, I don't know, this isn't working, and so I was like, I'm gonna start from scratch and get rid of this. I'm gonna start a new project. And I just did. I went away and I stepped away for about 3 hours. And then I came back, and with 1 hour left, if 30 to 25 minutes, something like that, composed the track, 30 minutes, mastered the track in my DAW. So we're going to be looking at the unmastered version and how it was put together. So this is the track here, and if you haven't heard it yet, you can go listen to it in the eye on the screen, somewhere up there maybe. This track was put together, like I said, in about 30 minutes in Orb Composer, so it was very fast. And one of the things that I used, you see this snare drum? It's not actually a snare drum. I'm using 8-DO clocks. The Time Is Now has clocks in it. It's inspired by that sound of the ticking clock. This whole piece centers around that idea of the ticking clock, because the time is now to get this track out for the demo. So that's kind of where we were going with this. So how exactly did I put this track together? What did I do? What are the different things that I added? So first of all, this is a very simple pattern. It's literally just tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. In fact, it's that way for every theme. But here's the trick. In my DAW, when I went to send this out to MIDI, I didn't actually just let it do a tick-tock, tick-tock, because you may not be aware of this, and you probably, if you don't have 8-DO clocks, you're not familiar with it. But let's go to my DAW. So here we are in my DAW, and as you can see, we have the clocks right here. And when it recorded all the clock sounds, you can see just how much is going on. Now, what's going on here? Well, this is literally all of the MIDI data from the entire song. And if we just solo this, you can actually hear what I'm talking about. So essentially the way 8-DO clocks works, which you can see a link to in the description down below, is that it is a sort of a full keyboard, almost a full keyboard, not full 88 keys, but like 62 or something like that keys of just tick-tock clocks all over the place. So what you end up with is this ability to kind of make all these cool ticking sounds all over the place with your MIDI. And I just sort of said, you know what, I'm going to let the MIDI just be whatever it is, and whatever clock sounds come out, that's what we're going to use. So what I ended up with is this really cool sort of the melody rhythm, the arpeggio rhythm, etc., all sort of playing on each other here. So the MIDI that's actually being sent by Orb Composer, and the way I did that was to set it to all inputs instead of the specific input for the snare drum 17.9. I didn't set it to that. I set it to just all inputs, so that it'll receive MIDI data from all of these tracks. So what we end up with is this sort of cool effect with the clocks. So it's doing more than just tick-tock, but there is a tick-tock in there that is consistent. taking a quick dive back into Orb Composer, let's take a look at what we did here. So we have D minor, A minor, C major, G major. Some of you might immediately recognize this as one of the chord progressions that are in that document that I've told you all about many times now in the starter chord progressions. This seemed like a really easy way to get away with that. Let's do this in a quick and easy fashion to get this out as quickly as we can. So I was like, let's just use one of those chord progressions that I like, that are good starter chord progressions for pretty much anything. And that demonstrates one of the points of this, is that these chord progressions work equally well for EDM and pop music as they do for cinematic music. So let's take a listen. So we're getting some artifacts, and that's just a result of me recording my screen and my camera and everything all at the same time. But what we have here for the bass, for example, is just a density of 45. The polyphony 1, obviously, also that can be changed if we wanted to. We can change the polyphony to 2, and it would change the bass. I like that bass line. I think it's really funky and groovy, and that's why I kind of stuck with it. I was like, yeah, let's keep that. Let's not change it. I like that bass line, and we'll keep that throughout, so we won't change it anywhere. The only thing we're changing is what notes it plays. As for the drums, well, the drums were programmed first in the sequencer, and then because my drums, I use the U-Beat bundle, is not mapped to general MIDI, I have it instead have moved them to the correct locations, which in this case is a weird position, D flat for the bass drum, and then C for the closed hi-hat. It's a really weird location U-Beat uses for these instruments, but all I had to do was go ahead and generate the track as I wanted to using the sequencer, which is all that I did. I went into the sequencer here and created a drum pattern. So there's a couple ways to get in there. Right click and you can show parameters. And what we'll do is we'll just erase that, and we'll just put every downbeat we'll have a bass drum. And then every upbeat will have a closed hi-hat. There we go. So now all we have to do is, now that that's done, we can move this to where it needs to be, which in this case is C4, D flat 4. And then this one gets moved to C4. So that So that's obviously not where I wanted my drums to start. I started them a little bit later in this bar. And you can hear the ticking clock still going. That's because that's not muted. And so what you get is this is the ticking clock. Every time I solo something, you're still going to hear it because it's set to all inputs. So you can actually hear it following the drum pattern there. If I switch it to bass electro, you'll hear it following the bass. If I switch over to the solo cello and play that. If I switch over to the piano, you'll hear it follow that. So that's how we end up with all these different patterns in the 8-DO clocks. This is probably my favorite part as well. So I like that part for some reason. It's just really cool. Now this melody actually was the first melody that was generated with this pattern here, and I just said, "Yep, that's a nice melody. We're sticking with it. We're not changing anything about it." So there's really not a whole lot to talk about with this track. The only thing I would note is that I'm using two different patterns for my synths. My lead is very similar to my synth 1, and it's actually playing a motif, whereas the other one's playing an arpeggio. But they're playing very different things, so together and then, of course, we have a pad, our piano, and our solo cello, which I thought went really nice with the piece. Was a solo cello legato line. It's not the best melody ever, but it fit pretty well. So I was okay with that. That's pretty much the entire track in a nutshell. But if you have any questions about this track, please let me know down in the comments below. But before we go, I do want to show you the final mix and mastered version and how I achieved that outside of Orb Composer. So we're actually using a few different plugins here. We have Uline Loudness Meter, which is actually free. You can go and download that in the link below. We also have Tonal Balance Control, which lets us see the overall EQ balance of everything, and we went for bass heavy. Our compressor is set to a very light threshold, 1/9 or 1 to 9, sorry. We can see our EQ. I lifted the highs quite a bit here because it just wasn't kind of sticking out like I wanted it to. And we have Ozone, which did our pre-mastering stuff. We also used Bass Room to get kind of the bass that we wanted with this particular song. And then we have a 1 EQ at the beginning, just cutting off the low bass end. So what we end up with is there's a few plugins going on, but not much here because a lot of it was done in the pre-master stage. So I'm going to leave you with this. This is the final version, and after this, I will see you in the next one.
Hopefully you found this tutorial helpful. If you did, give us a like. And if you want to get your copy of Orb Composer, click the Buy Now button on the screen. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos.